he indicated initially in the interview before we helped refresh his recollection and whatnot.
Sure. And during your conversation, you told Chris, I don't have it on this, but I think what you said is that she slept at your parents' house the Saturday night before, and then she left Sunday morning. And that was
what the I don't have it on this is.
Can you repeat that for me?
I don't recall specifically making that statement. I can reference my summary if you'd like. But
you recall telling Chris that
I referenced the original interviews with him and that he told law enforcement back then that he last saw Ms. Baker.
To you was, that doesn't sound right either. Is that correct?
I don't recall if that was his specific response, but he kept going back to the 10 days. He kept thinking in his head it was 10 days.
Multiple times. Is that correct?
Yes.
And can we agree that Mr. Melton told you at least 3 times that the last time he saw Ms. Baker was 10 days before her death?
I don't remember how many times he said it, but I do know we had multiple conversations about it.
Sure. Would hearing your audio recording refresh your recollection? Is that right?
Yes, we were refreshing his recollection.
Okay. Fourth time that it had been 10 days since he last saw Ms. Baker. Is that correct?
I don't recall if he said it a 4th time.
Let the record reflect. And this is after you've told him multiple times, repeated to him multiple times, what he told law enforcement in 2001. Is that right?
Yes. I think he was processing. We were kind of going back and forth.
Objection.
He was processing, what he recalled and the fact that it's 24 years later at that point. So.
You then asked Chris, and I believe this is the 5th time you asked Chris, so was there ever a time in those 10 days, leading up until her death, that y'all just had a quick booty call or met up real fast or anything like that? Do you recall asking that question? And for the 6th time, Mr. Melton stated that he had not seen Ms. Baker within 10 days of her death.
She's given her?
He had not been with her, I believe, the week of her death.
Mr. Melton's response was not no?
I don't recall specifically, but I remember the further we got into it, I recalled that he was saying, because we were going down the path of, did you see her at any point for a booty call the week of her death? We were trying to figure out and narrow that timeline. And he said no.
Let me make sure I'm clear on my question. The question that you asked him was there any time within that 10-day window that he met up with Ms. Baker for a booty call? Would you agree on that?
I don't remember saying the 10 days. If I did, that's fine.
Sure. Would hearing the recording refresh your
I
recollection?
did, that's fine.
Y'all had a booty call or met up real quick or anything like that?
And he said no.
And he said no.
Okay, so now we're at time number 6 that Chris Melton has told you that he has not seen Ms. Baker 10 days within her death. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you would agree that you told Chris that you know that he's been dishonest with police for 23 years.
I don't remember telling Chris he had lied to police for 23 years.
Do you recall telling Chris, I need you to be 150% honest with me?
Yes.
Okay. And you explained, I know that what I'm about to ask you is not what has been said for 23 years, and that may hinder you from wanting to be honest with me. Do you recall making that statement?
Something along those lines, yes.
And you then told Chris, but we're here because there's been is that perhaps you were with her at some point sexually, much closer to her death, and this is the language I emphasize, than has ever been let on. Do you recall making that statement?
Not specifically, but I do remember having that conversation with him.
Which then has ever been let on. Is that correct?
Yes.
And at the time, and you would agree that DNA lasts in the mouth for up to 12 hours. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that. I'm not a scientist. I have an understanding in what I was told. Correct. That was not the information we had at the time. We did get information later.
And we could also agree that DNA doesn't last in the mouth 5 days.
I'm not going to speculate to that. I'm not a scientist. I don't know.
That's fair. But we did know Mr. Melton's DNA was in her mouth.
No, Mr. Faust's DNA was in her mouth.
Okay, so is your testimony here?
You're talking about at that point?
Correct.
Oh, at that point, we believe that we knew it was on the oral swabs or a pack of swabs that was labeled oral at that time. And yes, that's what we believe.
You assured Chris, Jeremy and I are not here because we think you killed Tara at all. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
And you tell Chris that his DNA was in a place that makes sense for you two, but doesn't make sense for bad guy.
Yes, because he was her boyfriend.
In Australia in 2023 to 24, one woman was killed every 8 days by an intimate partner.
I'm making that statement?
Something along those lines, yes.
And it is fair to say, despite acknowledging that Chris lied for 23 years, you were asking Chris to help you explain away his DNA to pin Miss Baker's death on Mr. Faust.
I don't believe that Chris lied for 23 years. I reviewed his statements that were given the day of Tara's death or murder, and 2 days later, and those statements were consistent and made more sense, especially with the new evidence that they had sex 5 days or so prior to her death.
Sure. So my question is,
Intended or actual separation are risk factors for intimate partner homicide. The intimate partner homicide victimization rate increased for the second consecutive year.
dishonest, why would you make the statement so that leads us to believe that you were with her at some point sexually much closer to her death than ever has been let on?
Because when we were interviewing Mr. Melton, we obviously had this new information from the crime lab, and we're under the impression that it shouldn't last more than a few days or somewhere in that vicinity. At that point, of course, that can change once evidence is processed and more things are done to it.
Objection narrative, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Overall, she can think about whatever she wants.
So we were going with what we had at that moment. And now I've totally forgotten your question. I'm so sorry. And we were re-interviewing Mr. Melton to obviously just go over the statement and go through all the things again, but also to ensure that there was nothing we were missing.
Oh, do you mean like risk factors that might have caused Chris to be the perpetrator? Did you look at any of those factors, Liz?
Is there some reason that, he did have a booty call or go meet her for a quick to ensure that there was no meetup or anything like that had just never come out before? And we were trying to explain why, or this evidence and why it was there. I mean, obviously we knew that's her boyfriend. It should be there, but we were trying to get the timeline down.
What about looking at these things to explain it? I thought you said you read the case file and it was really long.
At this point, we agree that you had Mr. Melton's DNA in Miss Baker's mouth and her anus. Is that?
Liz, that is the exact same expression I have had on my face this whole time you've been testifying. Please get it together.